I've always been quite critical of Phil Spencer on this channel. Just go back and look at my video saying Phil Spencer let us down and ruined Xbox. But Phil Spencer now stepping down as CEO of Microsoft is not something that I like. See, quite contrary to what you might think, I've actually been an Xbox fan since the original Xbox, and rather than it being Spencer himself, I think that Microsoft as a company has let the gaming community down. And in this video, we're going to dive into that, and we're going to see how things got to where they have got to in the past decade, and how a once great brand has fallen, and not just fallen, but pretty much destroyed itself. And that's not hyperbole, because the person replacing Spencer is really new to Microsoft. They joined in 2024 and they actually lead the AI strategy, which is not a good thing for us. So let's get straight into it. In a shock move, Phil Spencer announced that he's stepping down as Microsoft Gaming CEO, and alongside him, Sarah Bond, the Xbox president, is also leaving. And these are two pillars of the Xbox community, and we'll say that they're two pillars that are left. There were many, many more pillars than this, and that's what I want to talk about. Let's rewind to the start of Phil Spencer's career with Microsoft and Xbox. See, Phil Spencer was with Microsoft since the Encarta days, and he's been with the company, 30 plus years. He took over Xbox from Don Mattrick in 2014, so that's 12 years ago at this point. And that was because Don Mattrick completely bungled the launch of the Xbox One. Don Mattrick, who was with Zynga and all kinds of other crazy companies beforehand, tried to make Xbox something it wasn't. He tried to put TV as front and center, and a lot of the Xbox One reveal was showing NFL on the TV and hey, you can watch TV and you can stream these things, rather than the fact that it's actually a games console. He also bundled the Kinect with every launch Xbox One, which meant it added $100 extra over the PS4 just to have a camera that we didn't really want, that actually you couldn't turn off and just watched you in your living room. And the cherry on top was that the PlayStation 4 was actually more powerful than the Xbox One too. So despite having a great launch lineup of a Forza game, Rise Son of Rome, a new Dead Rising game, it actually, none of that mattered, because not a lot of people bought the console at launch, and those who did were kind of disappointed. It just didn't feel next gen like the PlayStation did, even though they had better games. So Phil Spencer was brought in to quickly reverse all of this real bad damage that Don Mattrick had done. And I think Spencer, in a way, has gotten a raw deal, because he very much tried. If you look at the years successively after that, 2015, 16, 17, they very quickly threw the Kinect out. He said, well, you don't need a Kinect, let's drop $100 off the Xbox price. They started getting exclusives, like Rise of the Tomb Raider was an Xbox exclusive for I think a year. And they started to really claw back the fan base. Under Spencer, we also got Game Pass, which in the beginning was an excellent deal and was touted as the best deal in gaming. And I mean, today that is something that's very, very far from true. But at the time, Major Nelson was also at Xbox. They had a podcast, the Xbox Series S? No, not Series. The Xbox One X came out in 2017. And that, was even more powerful than the PS4 Pro. Bumped up the resolution of most games to 4K. And it seemed like Xbox was getting back onto the right track. They kept saying, we're here for the gamers, it's all about the games. And we started to believe them. However, somewhere along the way, and I'd say around 2020 and the release of the Xbox Series X and the delay of Halo Infinite, and things just started to not go well. And ever since then, it's been a slow hemorrhage of people leaving. Major Nelson left, other people left, Matt Booty changed positions. And you could just tell that Xbox was just getting a little bit more top-down controlled by Microsoft as a company. The price of Game Pass, for example, has gone up astronomically to the point where most people I know have cancelled their subscription. And this all kind of coincides with changes at the top of Microsoft, and Microsoft, it seems, really views Xbox now in a way differently than the original one. Let me explain that. So in the beginning, Bill Gates wanted to take on console gaming. Microsoft had a huge chunk of share in the PC gaming market with Microsoft Windows, but they thought, you know what, let's take on Sony and the PlayStation and make a Xbox for the living room. And they did that, and Xbox was allowed the freedom to compete and to get exclusives and everything like that. Over time, though, as Bill Gates stepped back and other people became in charge, Xbox has been increasingly seen as just an arm of business and one that doesn't do well. But the problem is it's a negative multiplier. So let's go back to, the post-Don Matrick era with the Xbox One. They brought out Game Pass, and then they started to say things like, we don't believe in exclusives. We want people to play everywhere. So they began porting Xbox games to the PlayStation, to the Nintendo consoles, the Switch. And that's because clearly the player base wasn't large enough because of that huge mess up in 2013 with the Xbox One launch. It was clear that, the player base wasn't there to make exclusives worth it. But the problem is, if you don't make the exclusives worth it and give people a reason to buy your console, they're not going to buy your console. Personally, I can attest to this. I have a Series X sitting right there, but I also have a PS5 Pro. I waited for the Indiana Jones game to come out on PlayStation to buy it because the PS5 Pro's gonna play it way better. And that's very much the problem. There's no reason to turn on the Xbox. And because people didn't have a reason to turn on the Xbox, they didn't. And Microsoft interpreted that as, well, we need to make our games available everywhere. But then that's the nail in the coffin, because if you do that, you then have no reason at all to buy an Xbox. So you don't need a whole gaming division, really, do you? And that's where the downfall has been going for the last 6 to 7 years of Xbox. It's that, well, we weren't profitable, so we're going to cut our losses, and instead of investing more into Xbox and drawing people in and saying we have all these exclusives you can only play here, well, they've now given people a reason not to own an Xbox. If Xbox was the only place I could play Indiana Jones, I would be buying an Xbox and playing it there, for example. Then you add to that Gears of War, Forza. Well, if I can play them on PC or PlayStation, what's the point? And now PC doesn't matter as much because Microsoft still owns that and it's a different kind of gaming, but, Xbox, if there is such thing as a console war, Xbox has lost it. And now with Phil Spencer stepping back, it just cements this idea. Asha Schwarmer, the person replacing him, she leads their core AI products, and it's all about AI. And the problem with that is most of us hate AI. AI sucks. It's taking people's jobs. It's not even good at what it's supposed to do. And really, all it's making richer are the billionaires who created it and the other entrepreneur, in quotation marks, that people, want to rip people off for a quick buck and create fake articles with AI that read like absolute crap. And the problem is now, even though I think that Phil Spencer leading Xbox, after, say, 2017-18, he made some mistakes, I think a lot of it was pressure from the top down to make this a profitable and ever increasingly profitable arm of Microsoft. Because the problem is with these big companies that are on the stock market, Xbox has to show growth every year. They can't just be content with, hey, it's profitable and it's this much profit. It has to be every year we have to grow, otherwise people won't invest. And that's the problem, and this is all the pressure that Phil Spencer has been under. So I think we're entering a new generation of Xbox with Phil Spencer leaving Microsoft and Xbox, and I'm not sure I like it. I think this really is going to spell the end, because Spencer and to an extent Sarah Bond marked the last of a good generation. That Xbox One generation, even though it was really slow to start and was messed up by Don Matrick, they started to do a lot right. It's the only place where backwards compatibility matters. PlayStation has struggled with that since you can't put a PS3 disc in a PS5, but you could put a 360 disc in your Series X and play the game. And I think there's so much that the company does well, and I think Xbox could be revived if it was allowed to be revived with investment from the top. But I think that really, from the beginning, Spencer was handed a really bad hand, and he's been doing the best he can. And yeah, we have blamed him, and I've blamed him on this channel for a lot, but, you know, I miss the Xbox One period, you know, when games like Sunset Overdrive were greenlit. It's the only place you could and can still play Sunset Overdrive is PC or Xbox. That was a great game from Insomniac, but again, because the support wasn't there from their messed up launch in 2013, well, it kind of went under the radar. So this is a sad day to me, and I think maybe the final nail in the coffin of Xbox, because I really don't like the look of someone who runs an AI division now heading up the gaming division. What does she know about games and the community when Spencer's been there for 12, 13 years in Xbox and has a very, you know, keen sense of where we are going as an industry? This is just bad news all round. I mean, what is the next Xbox going to look like, if there even is one? Because I have a bad feeling that this is all leading to Xbox games only being available digitally to get people involved in paying a crazy amount for Game Pass now. Because it seems to be that's where the whole tech industry is going. You know, pay for these expensive services, and actually we don't care about community, we just want your money. That's what it really seems now. There's no more Xbox only events, there's no more Xbox products everywhere. You know, it used to mean something to have an original Xbox t-shirt, for example, and now it's just like, okay, where has everything gone? Even the Asus ROG Xbox Ally X, or whatever they're called, is basically just an Asus device with Xbox branding slapped on it. And we're just going down this road that has now terminated in basically getting someone who's not really had much to do with gaming in charge of Xbox. Frankly, this new generation isn't looking good.